We refuse to allow jihadists to dictate what we can and cannot say. That is the point of this conference. That is the point of freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is the foundation of a free society.
So Pamela Geller hosted a free speech art exhibit down in Texas showing cartoons of the Muslim prophet Muhammad. It was an interesting event in itself. It was an exercise of free speech, and it was a statement that in America we are not governed by a theocracy. And when I mean America, I mean Canada too, and the Free West. We have a separation of mosque and state. We're allowed to criticize any ideology, including any religion. A pretty obvious point that needed to be made, and we know that because she was attacked by two Muslim terrorists. Luckily, the terrorists were killed before they could get into the event. One security guard was lightly injured. Pamela Geller was fine, as was our own David Menzies, who was there.
There's somebody shot out there. There's possible explosives.
Could be an AK-47. I don't know.
Need everybody to remain calm, be kind of orderly. We're going to take you into the auditorium a little further away from the front of this building, all right?
But immediately after this terrorist attack, the mainstream media, the consensus media, went into attack mode of their own, not against the jihadi would-be killers, but against Pamela Geller, demanding how dare she exercise her freedom of speech to criticize a religion. Here, take a look at CNN.
Did you get any intel from the police about just how dangerous an event like this could be? Of course, everyone's concerned about the violence, but let's face it, your event wasn't just about the violence. It was about...
My event was about freedom of speech, period. And the fact that we have to spend upwards of $50,000 in security speaks to how dangerous and how in trouble freedom of speech is in this country. And then we have to get on these news shows, and somehow we are, those that are targeted, those that were going to be slaughtered, are the ones who get attacked, speaks to how morally inverted this conversation is.
Could you imagine if Pamela Geller had just survived an attempted rape, let's say, and had gone on CNN, and a CNN host had said, "Come on, you had such a short skirt. Surely you were provoking that." What a disgusting disgrace that the so-called free speech industry of the media would blame someone for having an art exhibit, blame the victim for their own attack. Here's the Washington Post. I mean, so these are not obscure radical censors. That's CNN. Here's a headline in the Washington Post, one of the most prestigious newspapers in America. Headline: event organizer offers no apology after thwarted attack in Texas. You'll notice the word terrorist is not in there, Muslim is not in there, jihadist is not in there, but the event organizer offers no apology. That's the news. It's news to the Washington Post. It's shocking. That's newsworthy that someone who was just the subject to a terrorism attack doesn't apologize. What would an apology like that sound like? I'm sorry to those poor young men. I got them so excitable. I'm sorry that I violated Sharia law and the Quran. What would such an apology even sound like? But look at the author of that story in the Washington Post. Her name is Sandhya Somashekar. And if you look at the stories this young woman has written over the months at the Washington Post, they're all about gay rights and women's rights and feminist rights, always taking the side of the victim. She is a social justice warrior. But when it comes to someone exercising their freedom peacefully, to dissent from a religious orthodoxy, the Washington Post then goes into attack mode. What a disgrace. But the disgrace is not limited to the United States. The Sun newspapers, where I used to write, had this grotesque character assassination, not of the two jihadists. They don't even describe who they are, but of Pamela Geller. The headline is 5 Things You Should Know About Pamela Geller, and it's written by a feminist writer. I used to work with her at Sun News, named Sheena Goodyear. Okay, well, so how does Sheena describe Pamela Geller? Get this. So this is a feminist, social justice warrior at Sun Media describing Pamela Geller. So who exactly is this housewife turned activist? A housewife turned activist. Why would you call her a housewife turned activist other than to belittle her and make her come across as some bumpkin, know-nothing housewife? I know Pamela a little bit, and she indeed is a mother, but she's an extremely accomplished woman. For example, She was a writer with the New York Daily News. Not just a writer, she worked in marketing and ads. One of the highest circulation newspapers in America, 500,000 readers. She was a financial analyst there. She's no bumpkin. Sheena Goodyear should be so lucky to have such an illustrious career. Pamela Geller was the associate publisher of the New York Observer. These aren't bumpkin newspapers. These are not intern-level jobs like Sheena Goodyear has. But of course, to disparage her as some yokel know-nothing, Sheena Goodyear, feminist, turns on a woman and calls her a housewife, the worst insult she can muster. If only Sheena Goodyear was such an accomplished housewife. The article goes on to imply that Pamela Geller is full of hate. In fact, the very first thing you need to know about Pamela Geller is not her illustrious record with the New York Daily News or the New York Observer, but, quote, she's president of multiple groups accused of spreading hate. But other than just retailing some accusations of hate, there's actually no evidence against her. It is a smear job. It is a smear. It is like as if a victim of an attempted rape had the Toronto Sun look into her dating history and say, oh, she wore short skirts. I hear she was easy. And the fact that both of these articles in the Washington Post and the Toronto Sun are written by young feminist women shows just how bankrupt the ideology of feminist liberalism is. Pamela Geller every day does more to defend women's rights and civil liberties than either of these two hacks who blame her for the attack against her. For TheRebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant.